Hey everybody, what's going on? Welcome back to another episode of the Crossover U podcast brought to you right here on the Crossover channel. My name's Kanaye and I'm joined with Josh today once again for another episode of this podcast. A lot to cover today. Big storyline, Johni Broome going down. We'll talk a little bit about that. Cooper Flagg's been balling lately, and there's a lot of teams who have making a case for their chances on the bubble. So we're going to be talking a lot about that later in the episode. But yeah, before we get into any of that, if you like this podcast, if you like any of the other content we do on this channel, please review, subscribe, comment. We like seeing your takes in the comments below and tell other people about it. All helps with YouTube's algorithm. So yeah, let's get right into the AP poll. I'll throw it over to you first, Josh. If anything stands out to you in this week's poll.
I definitely got to give it to the AP poll. They did pretty well this week. I'm a little happy with it. Big Talk is honestly the combination of Michigan and Michigan State. Both teams have performed wonderfully well in the Big Ten so far. They've racked up pretty solid wins. Michigan State's 12, Michigan is 20, if I recall. I think that's really pushing both teams up. The Big Ten's looking a lot more frayed now that Oregon and Illinois are faltering a little bit. Obviously, or Illinois lost at home to USC because of the Kasparis injury is kind of only off-putting because of the injury, but there are still some concerns on when he's coming back, plus the opportunities for Illinois to get the bounce-back wins because the season is starting to get to that point where we're almost midway through conference play already. And I think it's a huge thing. I think it's a huge thing just to see the rise of Michigan State and the rise of Michigan itself with Dusty Mays as a first year coach. So I'm looking forward to those matchups between both of those two teams later on this year.
Right. I mean, we were just talking about off record and how what the job Dusty May's done in turning this Michigan program around after the Juwan Howard era. Bringing in Danny Wolf and that pick and roll that they run with him and Vlad Golden, it's just unstoppable. And to have such a unicorn in Danny Wolf, 7-footer who can pretty much play point guard at times for them, it's pretty cool to see. And I'm really excited for that matchup they have coming up against Purdue and, of course, Michigan State. They play twice, so those are going to be good games. In terms of what's standing out to me is it comes towards the bottom of the poll. Georgia being ranked, I think, for the first
Yeah.
time since 2009.
I think it was
Um,
11, but I mean,
11 maybe, yeah.
regardless of
One of
it,
those 2 years, I think. But
I didn't even think that they were not ranked for that long. Through the entire Anthony Edwards
right,
time in Georgia, they were somehow not ranked. And all of a
yeah. I
sudden,
mean,
Austin Newell comes in and just
yeah, he's been balling. That dude's gonna be a. I don't know if he's mocked in the lottery as of right now. He definitely has a chance to get
he
to that point.
should be.
He's been balling though. Again, that Montverde class from this past high school season, they've been playing really really well in the college basketball ranks. Also Utah State. I got to give a lot of credit to Utah State. They lost their coach. They lost great Osborne. And they're right back in contention in the Mountain West. And they're ranked 22 this week in the poll. And I just a lot of credit to that Utah State program being able to bounce back after losing some big key guys.
Yeah, something in the
But
water in Logan, Utah.
yeah, for
I
sure.
don't I don't get it. They do it all the time.
Yeah, in terms of everything else, not too much really stands out to me. I think the committee did a really good job with this poll this week. I know for a
Yeah.
long time people were saying Auburn should be ranked number one. A lot of people also don't understand how the AP poll works. You're not going to go down unless you lose. That's why Tennessee was ranked number one for so long. But yeah, Auburn I think is in the rightful place at number one. Of course, that kind of leads into the segment that we have about the Johni Broome injury. So Johni Broome, believe went down pretty hard on his right ankle, I want to say it was.
Yeah.
And yeah, it twisted, it looked really bad. Didn't play the rest of that game against South Carolina. And I think that was probably by far the worst game that Auburn has played all around this year. They were able to sneak out the win against SC. But yeah, definitely scary if you're an Auburn Tiger fan. Scary if you're Bruce Pearl. There is no timetable currently on Johni Broome's injury. So yeah, just I'll throw it over to you if you have any thoughts about it.
I mean, honestly, it's definitely a really, really big issue. And as we're recording tonight, Mississippi State goes to play in the jungle against a broomeless Auburn. Obviously, home court advantage will play in factor, but there's big talk about Mississippi State upsetting Auburn tonight on their own home court, which that's pretty realistic. Johni Broome is not a person that if left off a team would just continue the way they are. And that's truthfully just going to show how good of a player he is. But does that mean Auburn's really going to fall off necessarily? I think they'll actually lose maybe a game or two, depending on how long he's out for. But you have to recognize Auburn's still incredibly deep. This is not just a Johni Broome style team. There's still Todd Pettiford, JP Puegues, and Holloway. Like the depth on this team is still, I believe, the best in the country, maybe rivaling Duke. And yeah, obviously, if Duke lost Cooper Flagg, it would be a huge, huge loss. But I don't think they would really fall that far. Do I believe Auburn loses their one seed status at any point? Maybe. It really depends on how long he is. I don't think he's going to be out as long as some people might be saying. I haven't heard anything over a month. Like for the most part, I've heard just a few weeks, maybe 2, 3 at most. But those will be crucial games. I'm not glossing it over as a recoverable scenario. Auburn will probably lose at least 1 or 2 games that they wouldn't have lost if he was there. That's the most I can
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. I mean, like you said, this Auburn team is still really, really talented even without Broome. The thing that concerns me, I think, is that Broome at times, I think a concern that a lot of people had about Broome was they weren't sure if he was going to be able to take a step forward from what he did last year. And I mean, he has. He's up to this point looked like the national player of the year. Of course, now that he's hurt, that might change. But he's done a lot, specifically with his facilitating too. I think he's averaging around 4 assists a game. And
Those two, yeah.
um, I I'm a little. What worries me with Auburn is they don't really have a true point guard on this team. Um, I think losing Broome is going to hurt some of that, just because. Um, again, Todd Pettiford, super talented, really good player. He's going to be in the NBA. But he's more of a combo guard. Yeah, he's capable of making their own shots, and yeah, he can dish it out here and there. But that's not really his play style, being able to get others involved. Um, and Baker Mazar, there's moments where he's solid at that, but that's just what worries me a little bit. I still think they have enough talent to get the wins in the games that they should win. But say they have any tough matchups coming up, like they do again tonight against Mississippi State, that's they could be in trouble. But again, I'm not super worried about Auburn. I trust Bruce Pearl, and yeah, this team is really talented, really deep, just like you said. I just think it'd be nice if they have someone who's able to kind of step up in um, the wake of losing Broome. Kind of like how you saw Jackson Robinson when Lamont Butler was out. He was able to pick it up on the facilitating end of the offense. So yeah, I think just you look for Auburn to get someone to do that.
No, I agree with you. Yeah.
So yeah, I think that pretty much segues into this kind of Johni Broome, or actually, I guess before that, we'll talk about it. As it stands right now, I think most people would agree that the best team in the country, my mistake, looks like it's between Auburn and Duke. That's not a discredit to Iowa State. They played really, really well. Keyshawn Gilbert has been amazing. Tom and Lipsey, they got a squad over there. TJ Otzelberger's got a great crew, and they're definitely going to go on a deep run in March, I think. But I think at the end of the day, it's between Duke and Auburn for me in terms of who looks like the best in the country right now. So I'll let you go first in terms of your take on that.
It's hard. I think obviously with Auburn's injury in Broome, there was a lot floating around with there. If Auburn does lose a game, which if they lose tonight, I think Duke would take over immediately. And that's not saying a lot. Duke doesn't really have much of a schedule, no offense, but the ACC is nowhere near the SEC this year and doesn't really need to be for Duke to stay well. They pretty much haven't had an issue in most of their games so far this season, and the schedule is not much of a concern. They don't really play. Actually, they might be the only ranked team in the ACC for most of the year, so they very likely won't play any ranked teams at all. Their hardest challenge might be Carolina on the road. I'm being completely honest with you. Every
Yeah,
game for Auburn is Carolina on the road at this point. So to say that they would still be the lesser of the two teams, even with the John Broome injury, there is more of a consideration, obviously, because of it. But I would still say Auburn's the better team. Do I think the committee will see it the same way? Probably not. I mean, it's the eight people. They'll they'll put teams with more losses lower than teams with less losses. The team doesn't have the same strength of schedule. And I mean, I still think Auburn's the 1 seed overall, but the gap has been closed. I think without a doubt, the gap's been closed. Or if anything, like you said before, there's really two teams battling for the number 1 spot right now. No offense to Iowa State, and it's Duke versus Auburn, which
Yeah.
that's going to make for some fun entertainment going on to the rest of this season easily.
Yeah, definitely. I think with Broome, Auburn for me is the best team in the country. But without Broome, I think I tend to lean more towards Duke. Even without considering the Broome injury, I think Duke has really, really played well recently. And I just think what they're so positionless on defense. They have like so many guys. They have length and they have really, really good wings that are able to switch 1 through 5 almost on defense at any point. I understand Malik Brown has been hurt. I'm not sure when he's going to come back, but once he does, of course, that's definitely going to help them. But I mean, just with the play of Cooper Flagg, I mean, again, he scored 42 the other day, and he's just played really well. They have shot making with Kneppel. Zion James has been solid. Again, their defense has been really, really good. They have the best defense in the country right now. And I mean, they're 2 bad possessions down the stretch. There are a few bad possessions down the stretch away from being undefeated this year.
Yeah,
Again,
if they weren't able to close out those two, if they were able to close out those two games, I should say, they would be well above every other team. And they still could be in that way. And it's getting to that point. People are talking about how this team could, and I think personally, I think this team is better than Zion's Duke.
I agree.
The comparisons are really coming to play. Cooper is playing honestly on the same, if not a slightly better level than Zion was. We're seeing honestly a deeper team as well. Like maybe there might not be an RJ Barrett comparison right away, but I think the combination of Zion James, Malik Brown, come on, Konkanupu, these all mix into a really strong squad. That keep in mind that Duke team only made to the Sweet 16. This
Right.
Duke team feels far better than that. I just if you told me right now they lose in the Sweet 16, I'd be very surprised. I'd be
Yeah.
incredibly surprised. But also, everyone was surprised when they did lose in the Sweet 16 last time. So I don't really know, but the parallels are really getting there.
Yeah. I mean, this is again with that Duke team with Zion, I believe 2019. They they were very reliant. Coach K had to rely on that freshman class really with Reddish, Barrett, and Zion to really handle the load in a lot of those games. This team is a lot more balanced all around. I give Shire a lot of credit. I mean, he's probably one of the best recruiters, if not the best recruiter, right now in college basketball.
And this is
He
his
has
best
another
team, truthfully.
Yeah, this is by far his most talented and best all around team that he's had since he took over the reins for Coach K. And I mean, Shire can't fool around this year. He's got to go on a deep run in March. And I think what concerns me a little bit is you briefly mentioned it, just the level of play that Duke is playing against. Of course, their opponents in the ACC, they're not really going to be very competitive. Again, like you said, their toughest game is probably Carolina on the road. And that's not even really necessarily because of how good Carolina is. That's just a away crowd that they're going to be facing in the
The
Deep
rivalry.
Dome. Yeah, of course. Again, rivalry, the energy is always going to be high. So that's just what concerns me a little bit once we get into March. Just the level of play that they've been playing against the opponents. That just March is a completely different animal, and if they're not ready for it after playing these kind of they haven't. I'm sure they're probably not getting up as much for some of these matchups that they've been playing, and it's just all about how locked in they're going to be come March. But again, I think they look like probably the best team right now, considering Johni Broome is out. But yeah, I mean Duke's got to go on a run in March, and I think they will. I think they'll go further than that 2019 team.
I think so too. They feel like, I mean, they really feel like a team that can win it all. And I think everyone's
Yeah,
saying the same thing too. That this is best. This is Duke's best opportunity to win a title since probably the last time they won it in 2015.
right.
Honestly,
Yeah, Duke's been due for a long time. It's been a very. It's going to be 10 years that they haven't won a national championship. So I'm sure they're going to be all in on it. Hope. Again, I'm not the biggest John Shire believer. But hey, if he can win the big game, prove it, then Good on
That
Duke.
would
And
that would kill all the haters.
yeah, it would. It would silence everyone. But yeah, kind of again sticking with this topic a little bit. That segues into the National Player of the Year debate. I think Johni Broome has led this race for the majority of the season up to this point. But now that he's hurt, Cooper Flagg kind of saw that and went out and scored 42 against Pittsburgh, I believe it was. And again, he kind of had his first viral moment of the season, getting that poster dunk, and which is kind of shocking me for a recruit that's arguably been the most highly hyped up player going into the year since Zion, I'd say. I feel like he hasn't had many very viral moments. Again, that's probably because you just don't see the athleticism. A lot of his plays aren't just highlight dunks the way you saw with Zion. But it's been interesting to see how the freshman class this year, for as highly touted and regarded they were going into the season, you haven't seen particularly many viral moments this year.
Yeah, I think beyond maybe like Jeremiah Fears and Harper,
Right,
there really hasn't been much. That doesn't necessarily mean this is a bad class. I think this is a better class than last year. I think this is the best class since possibly 2019, maybe 2021, depending on how you're viewing things right now. I really do enjoy just how strong and deep these freshmen are, and they're really making the sport look so much better. They're
yeah,
elevating teams. I personally, if you told like you take out really like Jeremiah Fears from Oklahoma, they're not a tournament team. You take out Jakachonis, Illinois is not a contender. So
right.
there's really a big push, I feel, with getting freshman talent in the main roles. And it's always been like that. But I think this year's stuff is showing it a lot more than, say, last year was, where some of the best freshmen, like I remember USC was stacked with freshmen, but they couldn't make it work together. They just
Right.
couldn't make it work. And now we're looking at it now, it's the complete opposite. I don't really know how to
Yeah.
say else.
Yeah. I think just think with a lot of the COVID year players having been graduated at this point, I think if we're starting to trend more back towards freshmen really kind of carrying the sport and really having a larger impact on the teams they play on than we saw in the last few years, of course, with the fifth year seniors playing, being granted the extra year of eligibility. I know there's talks that the NCAA is considering making a fifth year a permanent notion. So that's going to be something to watch out for in the years to come.
Yeah.
But I do like how the direction college basketball is heading in, and we're starting to see more of the freshmen really take over the sport the way we saw it in the years before COVID.
And I think that's the right way too, because it works
Yeah,
perfect for in general NCAA, and it works perfectly for NBA because they play so well at the NCAA level, but they never get used to the sport, so the NBA can recruit them so easily and get them into their level of basketball. Doesn't mean that either side is correct in this argument, but there's still a level to it. Doesn't mean that, going into your senior year is a bad thing. No, I think there's a ton of players that are being underrated every single year, by the way, like Dalton Connect last year for a good example, that
right.
played all 4 years. They didn't have the opportunity to be a one and done. Not everybody is, very few are, to be real with you. And they give these great opportunities, which I think is perfectly fine. Like we're looking right now. Yes, I think the best teams in the country have solid freshmen. Doesn't mean though that the winner will be it. I mean, look at Auburn. Auburn's on a team built on freshmen. They're a team
Right.
built on senior level talent. The reason why Duke is winning the way they are is because they have senior level talent. They have Sion James. They have Mason Gillis. They have really just such an age difference between their starters and say their bench that really makes a team strong. And I think that's the best thing about the team, about college basketball right now. So you're getting this almost connection between the one and doneers and the players that probably won't make the league but can still play college basketball like it's their lifeblood. And you get this combination of a wonderful team that's deep, old, but has the experience regardless of how you look at it. And I like that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that being said, I do think I lean towards Cooper Flagg right now in the National Player of the Year race, just because they pulled up his stats and he's leading the team in almost every statistical category. I understand this because he's being asked to do a lot more. just all around because they need the shot making from him to be able to win. Johni Broome, of course, really talented scorer, but Auburn has pieces around him. And again, I know we talked about how deep and all around this Duke team is, but they're still putting a lot on Cooper Flagg's plate for a kid who just turned 18 years old. He's answered. He's answered every time. And again, outside of a few bad possessions down the stretch, like against Kentucky and
Kansas.
one of their other, yeah, Kansas, and then yeah, and those losses. I mean, he's played really, really well this year. I did not think these Duke freshmen were going to be as good as advertised this early on, but they've shown it. And Cooper Flagg looks like the real deal. I'm a certified Duke hater, but I got kind of have to give it to Cooper right now. I think once Johni Broome gets back, whenever that is, I think there's definitely going to be a debate. I think Johni Broome's going to come back really motivated, not only just in terms of the National Player of the Year race, but to get Auburn. Say they drop a few games, get Auburn back on track, or if they don't, then add to an Auburn team that's probably going to grow since Broome's not going to be out there. They're going to have a lot of players with the chance to take a step forward and really improve in the absence of Broome.
Yeah,
So
I think there's definitely a
yeah,
buy into it as well. But, I mean, I would disagree with you. I'd still put Johni Broome in there. I think the injury, obviously, if it's longer than we think, I will consider Cooper Flagg just for the fact that there's not enough time for Johni Broome to get back. But as of right now, it's still Johni Broome. And I think there really is the desire there too, because Auburn's never won a national championship. This is
right,
their best chance since, coincidentally enough, 2019. And I think there's really a almost wonderful idea of having this Duke v Auburn final, almost a revenge match because they played earlier this year.
right.
And I think that would really decide it. If you told me right now that would happen, I would probably choose Auburn, but it would be close. Duke is
Yeah,
looking like a team that can win almost any game.
yeah. I
The
mean, Duke looks
problem
really
is
good.
that they're not being tested the way Auburn's being tested.
Exactly, exactly.
So that's my biggest concern because
Yeah,
Auburn will be playing tournament games basically the rest of their season. Duke might play like two or three tournament teams, truthfully.
yeah.
So it's
I
either
mean, yeah,
the experience they have from them will carry, or it's just that they're that good of a team that they just happen to be like a Gonzaga in a way to the
right.
ACC at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. I mean, Auburn has a body of work to show. Duke, they played good teams, but I don't think their resume stacks up as nicely as Auburn's does. Um, I know I've talked about it in one of the episodes we did a few weeks back. I think Auburn only lost that game at Duke just because it was in Cameron Indoor. If you're on a
Yeah.
neutral floor, give me Auburn. Again, I'm not a believer in Shire winning the big game, and until he does it, I'm going to continue to believe he can't win the big game. And I don't think Bruce Pearl is going to lose on a neutral floor to John Shire and a bunch of freshmen. No slight to the Duke freshmen; they're really talented, but I just think the experience is going to show in the tournament.
No, I definitely agree with you. And I hope that matchup happens. I really hope that's our
Yeah,
national
yeah, it'd
championship.
be really great for college basketball. I mean, it's perfect. It's you get the Johni Broome, who's a senior, national player of the year candidate, Bruce Pearl, really trying to get the national championship against the number one overall pick in the draft, and that's super talented. Of course, you already know the brand that Duke is. It's going to get a lot of people tuning in.
Oh, easily.
So
Easily.
yeah, so I think that pretty much covers everything for this pretty long segment revolving around Duke and Auburn here. But I think it's a good time to segment over to the tier list we've created for some of the teams that are on the bubble. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen right now.
Yeah. And the reason why we're doing this is obvious because now that we're midway through the conference play, we're kind of seeing teams that either didn't have the best conference or best non-conference player, sometimes like good to like, meh style conference
Right.
play or non-conference play. And things are like functioning out better. Like we're seeing teams that looked really good at the start of the year and now they've walked into their conferences and like things are already there. And then there's some teams that didn't have a good start and looking good, and then other teams that have just been a flat line. And the bubble's huge. The bubble right now will be the biggest it will be probably for the rest of the year. And that really puts a lot of teams in. I've seen really everything happen. Obviously, by looks of it, our 1 and 2 seeds are pretty much the same. Like maybe a couple changes will occur for the rest of the
Yeah.
year. But the bubble is the big talk. and I think it really is worth seeing where some of these bigger teams like. There's a lot of good teams on the bubble that we didn't really think they were going to be there, but here they are.
Right. Yeah, there's
Yeah,
definitely, I think this year the bubble is going to be absolutely insane compared to the last few years. There's a lot of big names on this bubble this year. So yeah, let's start off right at
yeah,
the
and
top with
the
Cal.
way, yeah, and the way that I should say the way it works is bubble in is just teams that are on the bubble that we're projecting as in. Bubble
Right.
out is teams are projecting as out, and then out is just like teams that could still be in the bubble to some people's minds, but we're just not seeing it right now.
Right. There's out or NIT.
Yeah,
So yeah,
pretty
again,
much.
let's start with Cal at Arkansas. Again, a lot of people thought he was going to change. I also thought he was going to bring a new energy being at a new school first year, but seems like he's same old Cal. He's gotten shot making from guys like Boogie Fland. DJ Wagner's played a lot better this year, but again, Arkansas has struggled. Cal has not changed his offense, and I mean it's getting kind of ugly.
No, you're right. It's looking concerningly bad. Like this is a team that I mean, we'll put them in bubble in just for the moment, but it's looking closer to being bubble out every
Right?
day. I mean,
Yeah.
I they've lost really easy games. I think like the Old Miss game was the really big one for me because that's a home game against a lower level top 25 team. Like Old Miss is not a top 5 SEC team, and they didn't really stay competitive even towards the end. That was a game they should have won by like 10, but
Exactly. Yeah.
it didn't.
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
I think I'm with you there. I think Cal could end up getting the benefit of the doubt just because he's Cal and the brand he himself has in college basketball, and just the talented freshman he has. So there's definitely an argument that the committee views that as enough to put Arkansas in.
true, true.
Um, all right, and then another fun one following Arkansas is UCLA. I know that's been a big story in college basketball as of recent, just with them dropping 4 of their last 5, I believe, and the comments Mick Cronin made about his players, his old coaching staff, saying that it's tough to he called them all delusional, saying it's tough to coach delusional people, and he said that he's the hardest working or most motivated person in the building every day. I kind of side with him in some ways just because I feel like you should be able to get more out of your players considering how much they're making in NIL now. But at the same time, I think if you think you're doing everything you can, you probably aren't. And I think if his players aren't motivated and his coaching staff isn't doing what he needs them to do, then maybe that's on him. I think he needs to motivate his players more. I mean,
Yeah,
there's got to be a way he can do that. But yeah, they've had some bad losses.
and
Um,
they're definitely slipping too. I mean, obviously,
yeah,
the UNC loss was a bad start, and then getting into conference play really pushed them into this place. The Rutgers loss is obviously the biggest one in my opinion. That was a game
right.
they shouldn't have lost. The Michigan home game was a little bit offside just because Michigan is such a good team nowadays. But yeah, I'd put them probably bubble in over Arkansas to be real with you. But there are big concerns with this team, obviously.
It's tough. I almost want to say I see him ending up as an NIT team.
Ooh,
Um, I'm kind of leaning more towards bubble out.
I'm fine putting them
Um,
bubble out right now.
I just feel like Cronin has lost the locker room, and I think it's tough to get it back once you make comments like he did. I know Rick Pitino made some comments last year about his team, but that was more so. He just called them laterally slow. He didn't say that they're delusional and everything that Mick Cronin really put out there.
No,
So
I
I think
definitely
that's
agree.
could be tough to bounce back from.
Yeah, I'll
So
leave it up to you. Maybe
all
I
right,
I would put them bubble in. I wouldn't be surprised if they're bubble out at the moment. They're definitely a team that could be closer to that. Out might be a bit of a pull though.
yeah, I'm trying to move them right
Move it up to
now.
bubble out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, okay. So Texas Tech, another team. It's definitely on the bubble. Has a case. I'm sure they will come selection Sunday. But where do you have them right
I
now?
think after this Iowa State home loss, which by the way, close. I think they should have won it. They had some key issues at the end. They're bubble out to me. They're more of a bubble out team than UCLA, but they're like 1 or 2 wins from being back in the conversation.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. I think as of right now they're bubble out, but but yeah, I mean, I think if you're a Texas Tech fan, that loss to Iowa State was definitely a little encouraging just with how good Iowa State is. There's definitely opportunities they had to win that game, and they probably should have, but I think still, I don't think anyone would have expected Texas Tech to win that game, and the fact that they kept it close was fairly encouraging.
Yeah.
What
Iowa's an
about
interesting
Iowa?
one. So Iowa right now is being looked as a bubbled in team, and I really think that this is only because they had a you know easy-ish non-conference schedule, and so far their conference schedule has been about the same. The problem is that all their hard games are up ahead. They play Michigan, Michigan State, Wisconsin again, Illinois, Oregon. Yes, these are some home games, but for the most part, you tack on too many bad quad one losses. It's a big concern, and they have no ranked wins at the moment. So to put them as a bubble in team is not anywhere correct for me. I don't want to necessarily put them in out. I think they're probably gonna be out at the end of it. I think they're like definitely towards the end of the bubble out, probably like after Texas Tech too. But I wouldn't
Yeah,
be against you putting them in out in general.
no, yeah, I think that's a solid place for them.
Yeah.
As for Xavier, Xavier's definitely an interesting case. They've played teams in the Big East very tough this year. They do have good shot making on the perimeter. Their guards are really good. Davy McKnight is a legit player. I understand they lost Zach Freemantle for a little bit. He didn't play against UConn several weeks back, and Xavier took UConn to overtime. But now they have Freemantle back, and he's played well this year. And I think they could end up getting a bid.
Really? I would
Yeah,
put them out the moment. They would honestly need to lose at a maximum three losses. At a maximum three losses
yeah,
to stay in.
that's
And where
fair.
I'm
Yeah.
sitting at right now, I don't see it because they'll have to play UConn, they'll have to play Marquette, they'll play St. John's. Like it feels like they're gonna get more than that. And even if they do get three losses, it still might not be enough because of how weak the Big East has
That's
been
true.
this
Yeah, it's
year.
tougher to come by good
So
resume wins and quad one wins. So yeah, I think I'm
I would
with
put
you.
them out.
The more I
But
think about it,
the chance is still technically there, but it's like a 1% chance. It's really nothing
right?
much.
Um, yeah. So sticking with the Big East, another really fun one to talk about. Villanova. They started the season really rough, and I think there were talks that does Kyle Neptune even make it into the new year? But they've really turned around. A lot of that is due to the play of Eric Dixon, who is the leading scorer in all of college basketball right now at around 25, 26 points per game. They've just picked up a big win against UConn at home. And their defense, I believe, is top 30, if not top 25 on Ken Palm right now. They've really played well. Or not their defense, my mistake. Their offense
Offense, yeah.
is what's really good. Yeah, their offense, I believe they have the seventh best offense in the country, according to Ken Palm. And Neptune seems to have figured out a little bit of a recipe here. So yeah, I think they could definitely compete in the Big East. Um, do I believe this is sustainable, their level of play? I'm not positive just because I'm not a believer in Kyle Neptune. I think they might be bubble out, but
I think
I
with
wouldn't be shocked
yeah.
if they get in.
I would
You
say
think they
bubble
get in?
out two, probably in between Iowa and T Tech.
Yeah, I think that's a good place
Yeah,
for them.
I think that's fair. They have a shot, I'll give them that, but they need to win big games. Actually, as we're recording, they're playing Xavier, so that's a huge win if they can get it.
Right.
But they get another win against a Marquette, and I think they're bubble in.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. They just need to get they need to get 1 to 2 big wins. Whether that's against St. John's, Marquette, UConn again. But yeah, so moving on to Cincy. What do you think about Cincy?
Cincy's hard. Cincy's a really hard pick. They're 0-4 in conference. They were never really the most notable team during the non-conference stretch. They have the Dayton win, they have the Xavier win, but these aren't really, fruiting the way they were before, in terms of like their abilities. So to push it to me, and considering how rough the Big 12 is overall, they're bubble out. I don't really
Bubble
see
out.
them in.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think bubble out. I don't think behind Iowa. I think we bubble out between Villanova and T Tech. I would say I think there's definitely a chance. Jizzle James really needs to get into it, and they need to win home
Yeah, he
games.
does.
They need to
Right.
win home games. The home game loss to Arizona took them out of the function, and if they can get a good ranked home win, they're back in the conversation.
Yeah,
But
for
as
sure.
of right now, they're treading water.
Yeah, so Texas is up next. Texas is definitely intriguing. They do have a really good defense, according to Ken Palm. Trey Johnson is really electric, one of the best freshmen in the country. Incredible shot making from him, but outside of him, they're really reliant on what they're getting out of him, and they don't have much around him. I think they're out as of right now.
Just full out.
Uh, yeah, just full out.
I might have to disagree. I think they're bubble out. The opportunity is still there, but once again, they need to have like at least one or two ranked wins in the SEC. I think
Yeah,
that's a pretty good place to put them. They're like just the most borderline team, maybe a little bit more than I would, maybe a little bit less. I don't really think it
yeah.
matters too much at the moment, but Texas is just there.
I think I'd have them above
Yeah, I think I have
them.
them over there too. But they get
Um,
one bad loss, it's over.
right. Yeah, I mean, to your point, they did play Auburn fairly tough at home. I believe this is only a single digit loss for them,
Yeah,
but yeah, they need to stack some wins here coming up. The
true,
SEC
true.
so competitive. It's going to be hard for them too. So Lobos, what are you thinking about Richard Pitino and the
I want to
Lobos
put them
this year?
bubble in. This team
Bubble
has
in,
done so well. Uh, the win in the dunk against San Diego State does it for me. That is a defining moment in their Mountain West conference
definitely.
play. Obviously, they were taken out in the non-conference, and they appeared to be out entirely. But things are looking different. They're arguably the number two team in the Mountain West at the moment. I don't really think that changes too much unless San Diego State grows a little bit more. And yeah, they're pretty much as of right now like a first four team. That's how I
Yeah,
would view them.
yeah. New Mexico State's played really well this year. I definitely think it's that matchup they had at the Garden against Patino. Well, Richard's dad, Rick. That was a fun matchup.
Yeah,
And they played fairly well in that game too. But yeah, I think that win against San Diego State was huge for them. Big resume building win, and yeah, I could definitely see him getting a bid.
true.
Arizona State, where were you thinking
They're
on
bubble
this?
out. I
Bubble
mean,
out.
that's I would say bubble out between. Yeah, they're maybe not between. I think between Villanova and Texas, they feel
Villanova
like a
and
team
Texas.
that I think could still respond. They just haven't been on the right foot recently.
Yeah,
I mean, I know Arizona State's never really known for competing in the Big 12 or, well, in the Pac 12 originally, but their conference play has never really been the best. But their non conference play is really keeping them in this balance. If they can at least
right.
stay at the 50-50 mark or at the 500 with their wins and losses in the Big 12, they probably stand a good shot, but it's really pushing it. Once again, they're kind of like Cincy in my mind. Good team, obviously one team had a good conference, one team didn't really, but they still have like some abilities. They just need a good home ranked win. Maybe against Arizona, maybe against like a Kansas. I don't really know what the schedule is looking like for them at the moment, but this is this is Bobby Hurley's like last good chance, arguably, of getting
Yeah.
the team, and then
Um,
it's pushing it. It's pushing it right now. At least
right.
they're getting there.
Yeah, I mean, Bobby Hurley's put together a fairly solid squad this year. I know he has some pretty good recruits coming in next year as well. He's done a lot better of a job recruiting out of Arizona State as of
True.
late. But
But
yeah, it's going
recruiting
to be tough.
should lead
Big
to
12
good
is tough.
wins. Yeah.
Right, right. I agree with you there. Indiana. I originally thought no way, but as of late, I think they've kind of slowly just turned things around slightly, seem to start to trend somewhat in the right direction. Omar Balo's played a lot better recently. And I mean, it's kind of make or break for Mike Woodson. We've talked about so much how he's really been on the hot seat at Indiana this year. He's missed out on a lot of big time recruits, and the play. I mean, I thought he put together a really solid squad going into the year. They kind of haven't played up to expectations, like Miles Rice. Omar Balo at certain points of the year hasn't been great, but I think right now they might be bubbling.
Yeah. Ooh. I don't see it right now. I really don't see bubble in. I think the loss to Iowa keeps them bubble out. I think they're definitely closer than some of these later teams. I would say they're somewhere between T Tech and like maybe Cincy. for
Okay.
reference, or maybe
Yeah.
seeing Villanova. They're
Yeah. I mean,
definitely on the up.
I don't necessarily disagree with you. Um, I know that Iowa loss hurts them a lot, but I just think with the Big Ten kind of, I know some front runners have started to kind of emerge, but I just think it's wide open still in the Big Ten this year. I think they have a chance to get some good wins at home, at least at
Yeah.
Assembly Hall.
So where do
That
you
could
think?
definitely bump their resume.
So where'd you like to put them then?
I'd put them, if we're going bubble out, I think I'd put them ahead of UCLA, if
Okay.
I'm being honest. Yeah.
Okay. They're the
Right on
first
the cusp.
out,
Yeah.
which I've seen some boards put them first out.
Right. Vandy. Where you put in Vandy.
Part of me wants to say bubble in. They've shown it recently. They just haven't picked up the big ranked win yet. That's kind of the biggest thing,
Right.
the thing for them. And that's the biggest thing for a lot of these teams. They just don't have the big ranked win that you need to be a comfortable team walking into March.
Right.
I would also
Yeah.
put them bubble out. I think they're in between maybe like UCLA and IU, or
Okay.
UCLA and T Tech, something in between there.
T-Tech.
They're close.
Yeah.
They just need like, I mean, they had a good chance with Mississippi State. They weren't able to pick it up. That was a bad home loss that honestly keeps them out at the moment. But they're starting to get into this groove going into SEC play. They need to have a winning record. If they have a winning record or even 500 record, they should be in. That's how I see it. And AJ Hogarth is definitely leading the team to it. If
Yeah.
that's the case, I got to give him his respect.
Yeah. Definitely. As for Creighton, I know that 20-point loss to Georgetown really, really hurts them. Again, I know they've lost Richard Isaacs for the year with the hip surgery, and that just sucks to see because he was playing really well and they were really starting to hit their stride. I still think Creighton gets in.
I still think so too. I would
Yeah,
put them probably after New Mexico,
yeah, I think that's a good
um,
spot.
but they've just shown it. I mean, I still they have the better wins. They have the Kansas win. I think that's their biggest asset at the moment. But if they can get once again one good, maybe two good ranked wins in the Big East and stay
Right.
2 or 3 games above 500, they should be in. I would probably put them in the first four right now, but they can sneak their way to like a 10 seed at maybe at max.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think so. They have one of the best home court advantages in the Big East. It's really hard to go into Chi Health and win. UConn has actually never won at Chi Health since they've rejoined the Big East with Creighton being in this new Big East. So definitely going to be excited for the match when UConn makes the trip up to Omaha. But yeah, I trust McDermott, Kalkbrenner again. One of the most underrated players of the last 2 3 years of college basketball. Super disciplined. Ashworth's been hitting his stride as of late. He almost had a triple double the other day. I still cannot believe he got double digit rebounds. I mean that's just insane to me. But uh, but yeah, that's I think Creighton's definitely been looking better as of late, and I think they definitely have a chance to get some big ones that'll get them in. Definitely
Sure.
excited for them to play at Gamble this Saturday.
Okay, so then UCF is
UCF I think is
another.
out.
Yeah, I
If
think
I'm just
I
being honest.
straight out.
Yeah, I mean I know the Big 12 isn't like as good as we thought it was going to be this year, but I understand the second chance you kind of narrative they have around them is kind of fun, but
Yeah,
they're just a
it's
fun team, but they're not getting in if I'm being honest.
true, and I mean they do have the good A&M win,
Right.
which I think is their only saving grace. But
Yeah, exactly.
what took them out for me personally was that drubbing at home against Kansas. I just don't see a team that can't compete with Kansas at home competing in the Big 12 overall, especially when it comes to
Yeah,
the
I
rough
agree.
road games that they have to play, especially crossing the country to like Arizona, for example.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I'm fine with you putting them out, probably over Xavier.
Over Xavier, you think?
Yeah, I think the chances are
Okay.
slightly higher, but out is out. Like the
Right.
door's kind of done.
Yeah. Um. So, were you thinking for SMU?
I'd also put them out to be real with you.
Yeah.
They had a little point. They lost to Duke at home. I think that was they had a fun start. They might have a winning record overall at the end of the season, but they're just not going to be able to tack on enough wins, especially considering how low the talent is in the ACC.
Right.
Maybe if they get some stackable wins against a Pitt or a Clemson or anything like that, they can come back. But the road is so rough for SMU. I just don't see it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just going to be so hard to get those quad one wins in the ACC this year. So it's just so top heavy as a league this year.
True.
So yeah, I just think SMU, it's going to be really, really hard. They're probably, I don't think they make the tournament.
Mm.
Nebraska team, the only Power Five team to never win a tournament game. Where are we putting them?
Putting them bubble in.
Bubble in. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it feels like a more legit. Obviously, they had a 40-point drubbing to Purdue on the road, but Mackey's just Mackey. It's a very hard arena to compete in. But Nebraska's been pretty well conference wise. I think I kind of want to put them over Nebraska over Creighton. If I'm not
Over
wrong,
Creighton. Okay.
Creighton did lose to Nebraska,
They did. That is
so
true.
I think just that
I
alone
do have
puts them
that.
in a good spot. They might not even be first four. I just think that like the Big Ten is just good enough where they can stack quad one wins and probably get in. I really don't see them losing too many more games, considering how diverse the Big Ten is. So yeah, I guess that's really yeah.
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's a good spot for them. Arizona. So this is a team that I thought had absolutely no chance, and then you turn around, they've won all four. They're 4-0 in conference play in the Big 12.
Call it
So
magic, call it Caleb
yeah,
Love. It's something, all right.
I think a lot of it has to do with the emergence of Carter Bryant playing really well as of late. Um, but I just really don't know if I believe that this level of play is sustainable. Um, I just I don't know. Caleb Love is just so up and down. He's gonna have good nights, of course, but there's also gonna be nights where he only makes three of his 15 to 20 shot attempts, and if he's not making shots, then Arizona's kind of a tough spot. Carter Bryant has played well, but I thought they were gonna get a lot more out of guys like Trey Townsend, and I think the loss of guys like Omar Ballo, Colin Boswell definitely hurts them a lot.
Oh, absolutely. And this is a team that was once again predicted to compete. They were ranked preseason.
Yeah,
I'm putting them bubble in. I think they're definitely the most borderline team right now. Maybe slightly over Creighton. I don't really know at the moment. It's definitely an up to you choice. The biggest thing going for them right now, at least, is just their big road win against Cincy. And if they can pick up a road win tonight against or a home win against ranked Baylor, then that probably cements more, but
right.
they need to stack it on because non-conference killed them, and if they can get at least three, maybe four more quad one wins, I think that's a guaranteed tournament team.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think it does help having a guy like Caleb Love on your team, a kind of household name in college basketball. So again, in the committee's eyes, maybe that helps them get a little bit of the benefit of the doubt.
True, true.
But who knows? That they need to have an actual body of work that's going to put them in a position to get that. Um, so yeah, it's going to be tough, but who knows? They could continue to play really well.
Yeah,
Touch a little bit on some mid majors. We got St. Mary's and Dayton coming up. Obviously, starting with St. Mary's next in line.
I
Um,
would. I kind of want to put the bubble in. I'll be honest.
yeah, I
It's.
mean, you go ahead.
I think they're. I mean, the big thing I guess to put them bubble out is like they're so under the radar that it's very hard to tell. But they've
Right.
picked up, I think two or three quad one wins, and their losses have not been horrific. They've done very well in the WCC. It's probably to be expected that they'll win at least one game against Gonzaga. And if that does occur, that should be enough to make them a certifiable bubble in team. I think it's close. I think maybe somewhere between Creighton and Arizona, in my opinion, but I'm not shocked to put them bubble out.
Yeah. I'm also kind of leaning more towards bubble in, just because I think like if you look at their what they've done over the past 2 years, they've been really successful under Bennett, and I just think that's the same areas. It's a team you can't count out. Can't count out against Gonzaga. They kind of had their number the last few years. I again think they have a chance, really good chance to beat them at home this year. Gonzaga's kind of up and down. Started off hot, not great as of recent, but yeah, they played well in the WCC, and I think we're probably going to get another Gonzaga versus St. Mary's for
Yeah.
not only competing for a regular season championship, but also a tournament championship in the West Coast Conference.
And I
So
think that's
yeah,
really the biggest thing for them.
cool. Yeah. Dayton. Dayton's definitely a fun team in the A10. Definitely would like to see them take the move up to a power conference if teams in whatever power conference. I know the Big East has been talked about a lot is picking them up. If these teams can vote them in, that'd be great. I think Dayton would be an amazing addition to the Big East. But they played really well this year. They've gotten some big wins, and I think this is a team that probably is going to end up getting in.
I think so too. They're pushing it though. These A10 losses have been horrific.
Yeah,
And like I mean, it is a mid-major conference, so you get more than like three losses in a mid-major conference,
right.
and those are quad two wins. Those are quad two, quad three losses. It doesn't work for them. I put them bubble in as well. I think they're somewhere between Arizona and St. Mary's to be exact, but
Hmm.
they're losing control of what was looking to be a nice A10 for them, and they're having to compete against not easy teams. St. Louis is not easy. St. Bonaventure, not easy. VCU, not easy. I think at
Right.
this point we're probably looking at a one bid, maybe at most two for the A10 this year, and Dayton's walking a tightrope on that exact value.
Yeah.
They
I
they
mean, right
they
now I
just
think
can't
it's
lose.
yeah. I honestly right now think it's a toss up between them and the Bonnies for that A10 bid. But yeah, they didn't like you mentioned. They're walking on thin ice. They gotta get back to the way they were playing at the beginning of the year. But again, that's a dating program that's been really successful the last few years, and I think if they get into March, they could definitely pick up a winner, make it to the round of 32.
Yeah, and then
So the
lastly,
last team, we got Missouri, the Missouri Tigers,
I would also say bubble in. I think
Bubbling.
once again, and
Can't
it's a
believe it's
lot like
Kansas.
it's the Kansas wins. It's a lot like Creighton. The Kansas wins
Yeah,
keeping them. They've done all right in the SEC. I'm not against seeing them get like one or two more ranked wins. They feel trendy at moments, and then they'll drop bad games. That's kind of how Missouri's always been. I
right.
think non-conference kind of put them down for a little while. I think the conference play right now is putting them down for a little while, but they need to heat up the way like Georgia's been heating up. I think that's kind of how I'm looking at it right now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, again, they have a fairly solid resume. Again, the Kansas one is kind of what's carrying their chances as of right now. Tony Perkins is a very solid player, and I mean, I could definitely see him a world where they get in, but
Yeah,
they
I don't.
obviously can't drop many of the games. Like the games they should win, they have to win. They can't drop a lot. It's just how competitive the SEC is going to be.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with you on that. But that should be about doing it.
Yeah, yeah. So that pretty much covers our tier list for these bubble teams right now. And yeah, that's pretty much going to take care of everything we have for this episode today. Definitely a lot going on college basketball. Some movement in the poll. I think the committee did a really good job with this week's poll. A lot of big games coming up. I'm sure this next following weeks is going to be filled with high key marquee matchups. And I mean, I'm super excited. College basketball, again, we talk about it all the time. It's a really good place. The parity across the sport is the best of the best. It's been in a long time. And yeah, it's unfortunate to see Johni Broome go down, but that's kind of paved the way for Cooper Flagg to kind of assert himself as the potential National Player of the Year candidate. So that's definitely been fun to watch and to see the freshman kind of regain the top of the sport as some of the more established superstars. So yeah, again, that's pretty much going to take care of everything that me and Josh have for all of you today. Again, please, if you like this podcast or any other content you see on this channel, review, subscribe, tell other people about it. And until the next episode, we will see you all next time.
Catch y'all.